Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm joined by my lovely guest, Mr. Lucky. He will probably be in the background of this, but that's okay. We love him. So today's video, I am going to be discussing what is a school counselor. You might already have some ideas of what a school counselor may or may not be, maybe some preconceived notions of what you believe a school counselor does. But I'm going to dive in deep today into what a school counselor actually is and what do we actually do. So first of all, school counselors follow what is called the ASCA model. So ASCA stands for the American School Counselor Association. So this is kind of what governs what we do and like the expectations and guidelines of what a school counselor is and does. For the ASCA model, there are 4 categories of things that school counselors are supposed to focus on. So the first one is called assess. So assess means like assessments and evaluations and professional development. So school counselors are expected to have professional development, so ongoing training, ongoing learning. We are always continuing to learn and grow in our field and our specialties. We're also expected to have evaluations, so that can be through your principal or your supervisor or whoever that may be, so we get evaluated. And then also providing any kind of assessments that may be needed. The second part of the ASCA model is deliver. So this is that big meaty chunk of a school counselor. So deliver is about direct and indirect services that you provide for students. So direct services would be that when you're actually meeting with the students. So that could be in a group setting, that could be in an individual setting, or that could be in like a classroom setting. So providing direct services means directly to the student. It could also mean providing services directly to the family and the parents. Now, the indirect services would be things that we are doing for the betterment of the student without actually being right with the student, talking directly to them. So indirect services would mean we are doing like emailing, we are calling parents, we are collaborating with teachers, we're setting out like outside therapy referrals, anything that is directly involved for the students without talking directly to the students. So that's indirect and direct services. That is under the deliver portion of the ASCA model. Now, the third part of the ASCA model is define. And define is kind of defining your standards of your program. So with ASCA, we have this thing called mindsets and behaviors. And mindsets and behaviors are the standards that us school counselors follow. So as a teacher, teachers have their standards that they have to follow and they have to do, and they have to hit their standards for their students. So like there's math standards, ELA standards, those kind of things where teachers have to do these things. With a school counselor, we have the same kind of thing, except it is called mindsets and behaviors. Now, mindsets and behaviors are all the different kind of things that us as school counselors focus on for our students. So that could be like getting along with others, setting goals, different types of social skills, that kind of stuff. There are many mindsets and behaviors listed out, and you should be hitting the majority of those in your school counseling program. The fourth part of the ASCA model is called manage. Well, the manage part of the ASCA model is all about your planning and your focus. So planning your comprehensive school counseling program. So that means what is your program going to look like for you and your school and your district. It can also be the planning in the smaller portions as well. So planning for your classroom lessons, planning for your individual sessions, planning for your group sessions, any kind of planning that you have to do. And then also the focus. What is your program going to focus on? So like, what is your school counseling mission and vision? You need to have a mission and a vision for your school counseling program that's going to kind of encompass what it is that you are doing as the school counselor. Now, a big thing with ASCA is data. Data. School counselors need to be taking data and tracking data for pretty much everything. You need to take data on the students you're seeing, why you are seeing them, how often you see them, classroom lesson data like pre and post tests, any kind of data that you can think of, a school counselor should be doing. It's very important for us to be keeping track of data and taking data because it is used to prove our worth and prove that we have an effect on these students. Kind of what you use to like show that you are doing what you should be doing. Now, a school counselor also has 3 things that we focus on. We focus on academics, careers, and social emotional. So starting with academics obviously means like the things that you're learning in school. The way that a school counselor addresses academics is going to vary on what grade level they're with. So if they are in an elementary setting, a middle school setting, or a high school setting. So how I do it in elementary school is I do classroom lessons on like study skills and goal setting. So study skills would be stuff like, it can range anywhere from organization and taking notes, and it also can be about getting a good night's sleep, eating healthy, and learning how to take notes, how to study. And then we can also put that into a group setting where we focus on those skills for students who maybe need that extra push, a little extra help with their goal setting or their study skill habits. It could also be in an individual setting if there's a student that's really, really struggling with figuring out how to get proper nutrition, proper sleep at night, those important things that you need to be able to do well at school. So, like I said, I focus that part mostly on classroom lessons, but I am also delivering that in group and individual settings as needed. So for a middle school and high school counselor, it's going to probably look a little bit different, where for them focusing on the academic side of things may look more like figuring out the barriers to the student success in the classroom, figuring out what it is that's holding them back from getting higher grades, like helping them reach their full potential. It could be maybe helping with like creating their schedule, classes they should be taking depending on what their future career goals are. It could also be like their attendance and what barriers they have for their attendance. And I should also mention, as an elementary school counselor, I also help with the attendance side. So new for me this coming school year is I'm going to be more in a truancy role. Like I'm going to be helping out with more truancy kind of stuff. So working with attendance issues, attendance barriers to help students with their attendance. Something that a middle school and high school counselor might do as well is helping with truancy issues. Now, the second thing that a school counselor focuses on is career and college readiness. So as a high school counselor, that's probably more self-explanatory. They do maybe career fairs, they maybe go on field trips to different colleges, do trade school stuff with their students. Middle school, probably kind of a little bit of the same things, maybe some career fairs, maybe lessons on careers. As an elementary school counselor, the way that I do careers is mostly through lessons. So career lessons, depending on their grade level. So the younger students, like kindergarten, first grade, we focus more on community helpers. So just kind of expanding the exploration of different careers and jobs that are out there. And as we get older in the elementary school, we learn what the career paths are. We learn about more different types of careers and different things that you can do besides just going to college. So even at a young age, I make sure that they know that there are tons of options out there for them when they get to that position in life. So we discuss that military is an option, trade school is an option, going right into the workforce is an option. And for my school, I am in a Michigan school, and so Michigan also has a career development model that we follow. So this gives you a guideline of the types of things that you should be covering for each grade level, kindergarten through 12th grade, as it relates to careers. Also for middle and high school, they might do Zello. So Zello is online lessons about different careers, your interests, your personality, learning about different careers, all of that good stuff right on one platform of Zello. And I know there's other different websites that other schools use, but Zello is a pretty popular one that I know about that my district uses. Outside of classroom lessons, we can also help with careers in the form of helping students identify their strengths, their weaknesses, their interests, their abilities. So you need to understand those kind of things about yourself before you go into the workforce. So understanding your interests, your abilities is going to be helpful in the future when you go to pick out a career and a job that is suitable for you. So that could be just helping a student discover who they are, what they like, who they are as a person. Even as young as a kindergartner, can have help with self-exploration. And that could be in the form of individual counseling, group counseling. It can also be in a whole classroom lesson as well. The third thing that school counselors focus on is social emotional. So this is where I spend most of my time as an elementary school counselor, and this may be different for a middle school or a high school counselor. But in the elementary school, I focus a lot of my time on those social emotional skills. So social emotional skills could be like emotional regulation, coping skills, friendship skills, executive functioning, all of that good juicy stuff. This is where I think I thrive in, is the social emotional skills. And I address the social emotional stuff in like every way possible. I do classroom lessons that address these different skills. I do group counseling sessions, and I do individual sessions working on social emotional skills. As I've been saying, we have individual sessions, group sessions, and guidance classroom lessons. So these are our 3 ways that school counselors can deliver our services. So our classroom guidance lessons would be tier 1, our group lessons or group counseling sessions would be tier 2, and then our individual sessions would be tier 3. So we have a variety of ways that we can reach students. We are taught as school counselors to be prepared to give classroom guidance lessons. This is something that you should be doing as a school counselor. Now, it may look different depending on what school you're in, what district you're in, what grade level you work with, of how you manage to do these lessons. So I know some schools, including mine at the elementary level, we are in the specials rotations. So we see classes every single week at the same time every week, and this is how we get in those guidance lessons. Now, I know there are other schools, other options of ways for school counselors to do our guidance lessons. So that could be having a sign-up sheet for teachers where they sign up for you to come to their class or for them to come to your space to do these lessons. You might do a lesson just once a month. Maybe you do it twice a month. It really just depends on the size of your school, how much time you have, and what works with the teachers. I personally really like doing these lessons because it is a way for me to reach every single student and know that every single student is learning and being taught the same exact things. So it's not like, oh, this kid knows this kid knows this kid doesn't know anything. It's a way for me to reach every single student and also get to know every single student in a quick, easy way. Of course, there are downsides to the classroom lessons as well, as you have to have consequences, you have to have classroom management, but you also still, want to build a trusting relationship with students. So it is a tight line that you kind of have to balance on between being a counselor but a teacher, like at the same time of teaching these lessons. So make sure that when you are doing your guidance lessons that you have an idea of how you are going to manage the whole class and what you are going to do for behaviors and consequences, and stick to that. But also make sure that students know that just because they might have a consequence for something they did while you were doing a lesson doesn't mean that they can't come to you still and trust you and have a positive relationship with you. So really make sure that you are able to give consequences, focus on behaviors in class, and also be able to give quality individual and group counseling sessions as well. So you can build groups based on similar skills that students need to focus on or work on. So we can do like a psychoeducation group, which is what I do mostly, is psychoeducation groups. So this is where you are kind of teaching the students, but in a smaller group, and they are together working on these same skills together. We might learn about a skill, we practice a skill, and we practice it, and we practice it, and we do it over and over and over again to make sure that we understand what this is. Now you can also do a counseling group where you just have kids that meet together that maybe have similar backgrounds, similar needs, similar issues going on, and you spend that time building relationships with those students, maybe helping them form bonds with each other, becoming friends with each other, and building a space where each one of those students can have their voice heard by their peers and you. And then individual counseling, this is where I spend most of my time at, is meeting with students one-on-one. Now, you can meet with students one-on-one for all of the reasons in the world. You can meet them for, again, those academic reasons, career reasons, social emotional reasons. As a school counselor, you also want to try to meet with as many students as possible. So this is different than a social worker who might be written into a student's IEP, where social workers with that IEP piece, they have to meet with certain students a certain amount of time legally. Whereas a counselor, we are not written into an IEP because we do not want our time to be focused on these select few students. Our job is to be able to be visible and open to every single student in the school that we service. So it is really important that you try your best to meet with as many students as possible. So luckily for me, I have a pretty small school that I work for, so I am able to meet with every single student at least once every school year. I do this by just doing simple check-ins. So every single student I pull and I check in with them for like 5-10 minutes. And this is a really good way for you to meet with those students who sometimes you might not know something is going on with them until you actually talk with them. Sometimes students are, quiet, or they're to themselves, or it's this and there's that, and you just don't know until you have those conversations with them. They might not outwardly ask for help, or they might not outwardly show that they need help through their behaviors. And so being able to check in with every single student is very important, because you never know unless you have those conversations with every student. A lot of things that I see in my individual sessions with students is a lot of friendship issues, bullying issues, social skills and emotions that we work on. And you also have to be prepared to do suicide assessments and threat assessments. Even as an elementary school counselor, you need to be able to confidently do those things. You may not think that these young kids are going to need a suicide assessment, but in today's day and age, some of them unfortunately have these thoughts and feelings. School counseling is also supposed to be short-term counseling. So we are not a clinical therapist. So I think that gets a little confused sometimes, maybe with teachers, administration, other outside people, is as a school counselor, we provide short-term counseling services. We do not provide long-term therapy, okay? So we work with a student on short-term goals, things that we can work on quickly, things that they do not need extended help with. You find that you are meeting with a student over and over and over and over and over, and they're constantly coming up, this is a time where you need to refer that student out to an outside therapist. Make sure that you have some therapist contacts that you can refer students to. You know how to do that as well. The process of referring students out to outside therapists. Now, we provide support as much as we can, and we can check in with students many times throughout the school year, but they should not be dependent on you to be their sole therapist. If they have a big issue going on, like let's say they have a lot of trauma, they have some PTSD, that goes with the trauma as well, of course. If they have some extreme anxiety, extreme depression, if they are coming to school like hysterically crying every single day, maybe it's time to send them onwards to a therapist. Same with suicide. Those students need to be referred out to an outside therapist. It's very important that you recognize when a student has needs outside of your ability and that you refer them out to the appropriate agencies for them. So that's a rundown of what a school counselor does. Again, it's going to look different if you are in an elementary school, a middle school, or a high school. The roles will be a little bit different depending on the grade level you service. It also is going to be a little bit different depending on your school size and if there is another counselor with you or if you are the only counselor there. So having a team of counselors versus just one is going to also look a little different. But the main things that school counselors need to focus on, again, is that ASCA model. So defining, assessing, managing, and delivering. We focus on careers, academic, social, emotional, as well as data. Data is so important. Make sure that you take your data. And then remembering that there are a multitude of ways for students to be reached. Again, guidance lessons, group sessions, individual sessions. And also make sure that you try to build as positive as a relationship as you can with your teachers and administration. You're going to have such an easier time helping your students when you have that good relationship with their teachers and the administration. So I believe I covered just about everything that revolves around school counseling. If you have any other questions, please let me know below and I will answer them as best as I can. I'm sure maybe I've missed some stuff. This is just what was on the tip of my brain. So of course, if I missed anything, or again, if you have questions, let me know below. I would love to hear from you. And if you have anything else you'd like to add, please do that as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.